Today, tripods. We're going to talk about some of the proper maintenance and usage tips that I can share for tripods. We're going to talk about what feet, spikes, claws to use in different situations with your tripod. I'll show you a cool little killer product to keep your feet and claws and spikes from falling off of your tripod. Plus, I'll announce some cool new titanium feet and ultra small claws and spikes for those with smaller tripods. Well, hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. We're going to talk quite a bit about tripods. I'm going to run through some common misuses that I often see people when they're out on workshops with me engaging in with their tripods, whether it's another brand of tripods or whether it's one of these custom built tripods that I sell in the store. And so I'm going to walk through some just better ways to think about using your tripod and making sure that you're getting the most stable, easiest way to use the tripod possible while you're out in the field working with it. I'm also going to showcase a cool way to keep your tripod feet from falling off your tripod and say it's vibrating in the car. I have lost feet in the past, and one of this channel's viewers actually linked to this product to me, and it's really, really cool stuff. I'll show you how it works. And we'll go through a little bit of maintenance, how to keep your tripod running well, even if you're out working in salt water and wind and waves, sandy conditions, that sort of thing. And we're also going to talk about what sort of feet, why there are these different types of feet, claws, spikes, rubber feet, and when you might want to use which. I think a lot of you probably already know that, but I'll tell you my general usage and how I like to think about it. All right. And right off the bat, I also want to showcase a few things that are brand new that are available for upgrades for your tripod or for any of my tripods that I sell. And these things are all over in the tripod section of my store. You can just click right here, or you can find the link in this video's full description, or you can always just run over to my gear list, all the stuff that I use, recommend, stand by over at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. That link is here too, and in the video's full description. But on my tripods page, you're going to find these custom build tripods, the tall light fluid head, the Ultralite, and the Featherweight. And you're also going to find a whole bunch of accessories for them, including these new feet, which I'm really excited about. So for people who have the Featherweight tripod or really small travel tripods with small legs that only accept 1/4" 20 threaded fittings, Leo Photo has come out with these amazing spikes, just like the bigger spikes that I have right now on my Ultralite tripod. And whenever you're changing tripod feet, here's the first tip. Extend that lowest leg section, grab it, and you can put your Allen wrench through there and start twisting it off like that. That's the way to go. You'll notice that this is not easy. That's because I use this product I'm about to showcase for you in a second. But you would thread it off like that, and you can thread off those standard rubber feet that come with the little tripods and thread on these spikes. And one of the nice things is if you stick your Allen wrench through there, get a good grip on it, and spin this little cap off the end, you will see this is a rubber foot that comes off, and you've got this beautiful rust-resistant stainless steel. It's high-grade stainless. I've been using these spikes for a couple of years now, and not a bit of rust, even though I've been in salt water tons of times. I rinse them off. We'll talk about that in a second, but still, I've had other spikes rust, three-legged thing spikes. Some other spikes just turn to rust even with rinsing, and there's no corrosion on these, so it's really high-quality stainless. You pull that cap off, and you can plant that in sand. Whether you're working in dunes like Death Valley or White Sands or Great Sand Dunes National Monument, or whether you're out in shifting surf and waves and just wanting a rock-solid tripod position, when you're in sand, there's nothing like a set of spikes. You just put your tripod down on the spikes and push till you're firm, and boom, you're locked in, and your tripod will move less than any other method out in sand. Claws. We also have claws. So claws for the 1/4" and spikes for the 1/4" tripods are now in the store. So if you've got a Featherweight tripod from me and you want spikes and claws for that Ultralite setup, you can get it. If you have another tripod that only takes those Ultralite or those 1/4" small threaded feet, you can go ahead and grab those too. Now, for a long time in my store, I have had, one more nice thing. The spikes add a couple inches of height, maybe even probably 2 inches of height by the time they're spread out to that tripod. So it just makes it that little bit taller, which is really nice. This tripod gets to be darn near, you know, well, it is. It's eye level for me. It's a little above eye level with the feet. I think it goes from eye level to slightly above eye level. It's still not going to help you on a steep hill. That's why I like the tall, light legs on my fluid head. But still, it's pretty great in a pinch when you wouldn't have any other tripod. So the feet and the claws both come in these nice boxes with a little protective case. These are the claws, the 1/4-inch claws. Again, those are all in my store. I'll actually give you the link to that right here, the tripod section of my store. All right, so cool stuff. So you've heard when I use the spikes. I pull the spikes on and off when I'm going to be working in sandy conditions on my tall, light fluid head. I kind of tend to keep them on most of the time on my Featherweight tripod and on my Ultralite tripod because they add a little bit of height. You know, the 3/8 standard spikes from Leofoto add a fair bit of height. And on my Ultralite tripod, that's a really nice thing. When I need to go lightweight, one of the things I miss about the tall, light set of legs is their 71-inch height. And a lot of people say, well, you know, I'm only 5'7". Why do I need a 71-inch set of legs? Well, but if you've ever been on a steep hillside and you throw one leg out down the hillside, suddenly you realize that even at 5'7", your tripod only comes up to your navel and you have to get down on your knees to try to work on a steep hillside. Or you're in some scene, there's a beautiful scene at Queen Anne Park in Seattle where it's really hard to shoot over a hedgerow to get that beautiful sunrise view of the city, but there's a park bench and a seawall, and you can actually step up onto the park bench, step up onto the seawall, throw one of those long legs down to the ground, put 2 of them short beside you on the seawall, and suddenly you're standing at 10 feet tall instead of 5'7" with your long tripod, you know, on the park bench, actually on the park bench and on the seawall. It's a pretty sweet setup, and all the other photographers in the park are going to look at you with raging envy. It just gives you all kinds of flexibility. You're standing on a rock with a deep tide pool beside you. You can only get 2 legs on the rock with you. That 3rd leg can go down into the tide pool, you know. So, and we'll talk about how to keep that leg from getting all gunky inside with seawater at the end of this discussion. All right, so enough said about why I'd use a tall set of legs. Why I would use claws, which is what are my standard operating feet on my big tall set of legs, is because they grip on wet rocks. Say you're in a mountain stream and it's slippery and there's moss. These scalloped metal-edged claws grip like nails when you're out working in slick rock and wet, slick stream rocks and all kinds of mountainy conditions. I have to be a little more careful here on my nice wood table because they will scratch. So, you know, there are times where I want to switch to, you know, I love Leofoto's innovative spikes because, you know, if I hold on to it so I don't torque the tripod, you can pull these caps off, and again, you've got spikes, but you put the caps back on, and it's protective, and you can work on, say, softwood floors, you know, a set of fir floors without making any damage. The other kind of foot is what comes stock with the tripod, these nice rubber kind of sticky feet. I use those in interior situations where I don't want to damage anything, but the claws are my favorite for the type of work that I generally do. And, you know, let's talk about those claws for a second, because there's a new upgrade that, again, innovative from Leofoto. They're these beautiful, scalloped, mostly machined out, milled from a single piece of titanium, 12-gram rock claws. Again, you know, you stick your Allen wrench through there, and we can open the leg a little bit. You don't want to torque the internals. Grab a hold and start spinning those on and off. Again, I have this product on here that makes it a little bit harder to turn, but when you hold one of these titanium rock claws in your hand, you're not going to believe, it's like it's not there. It's like a really high-end bicycle component weight. Each one of these is 12 grams. And the standard ones that we've sold for a while in the store, they're great. They do just as good a job at gripping and holding on, but they're 46 or 48 grams each. So in other words, a whole set of 3 weighs less than one of these. Actually, 4 of these weigh a little bit less than one of these, I think, is how it works out. And putting these on your tall, light fluid head setup takes that tripod from 7 pounds down to 6¾ pounds. I'm still under, I'm like 6 pounds, 10 ounces with my with my stone bag on the tripod and the whole shebang-a-bang. So these things aren't cheap. We've got them in the store. They're quite amazing. And we're going to be offering them as an upgrade in our builds of the Ultralite and the tall, light fluid head tripods. You know, it's a little bit more costly, but man, oh man, is it ever light. And they're like jewelry on the bottom of your tripod. They feel like they're going to crack and break, but they're titanium, so they're, you know, the strongest metal on the planet. They're going nowhere. I've been using these, and you can't even tell. They still look brand new. I've had them on a couple of workshops now. So great stuff. I love them. I told you that one thing I don't want to have happen with these, and I'll just reapply this for you to see. I don't want these expensive titanium tripod feet to spin off while we're driving on a workshop, you know, across the country from the vibration in the car. And so I'm going to put a little product on here that actually one of you on the YouTube channel told me about, and it's called Vibra-Tite VC3. And what it's a lot like Loctite. I know a lot of you have used, there's 2 different compounds of Loctite. You put Loctite on the threads of an object, and it sort of glues the threads together with the internal threads of your product so that they just fuse a little bit, and they have different grades of it. Some are permanent. You don't want to use that because then you won't get the feet back off, and some are temporary. But the thing with Loctite is you need to clean it off and reapply it every time you use it. This new stuff, VC3, is a little bit different in that it remains in the threads, and for multiple uses it still hangs out there, and it's not any kind of permanent bond. You can still undo it. And the way that you use it, I'm going to grab a rag really quick here, is for me, I lay a rag out because I don't want to drip this stuff onto my nice wood table. It's real waxy. I made that mistake in the beginning. And when you open the bottle, you know, it tells you to shake it well. So close it up nice and tight, shake it, get it all mixed up, and then you're going to open it and shake it a little bit more because you don't want to drip into the threads. My bottle right here is a little hard to open because it has a lot of this Vibra-Tite VC3 on the threads of the cap. And the first time I used it, I got more on the outside of the threads than I wanted to. It's got a little brush applicator, and it became really, really difficult to take off. I actually had to use a pair of pliers carefully without breaking the cap. So beware of that. Try to keep this product off of its own cap and threads. And you're just going to paint a bit. It's kind of thick, it's kind of waxy. You're going to paint a bit onto the threads of your foot. And it's red. I'll give you a close-up view here. I'll do a little B-roll and show you a close-up view of what it looks like painted on the threads. And then, if you read the instructions, what I like to do, I like to wipe the excess off the tip. This is not a rag you want to reuse. You're going to stain it red. But then you're just going to sort of set it there and have your phone or whatever kind of timer you like to use. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Boom, it's running. So in 15 minutes, my phone will beep, and that's when I'm going to thread it back in. This stuff will dry into the threads and become this waxy internal thing. And essentially, you know, before I put this bottle back together, I talked to you about the threads. Don't try to use a paper towel to clean this up. This stuff is waxy and hard to, it'll actually tear the paper towel to shreds while you try to clean the threads of the bottle. But I would wipe any liquid off the threads of the bottle, and then you can go ahead and close the bottle up. But at the same time as that 15-minute alarm goes off, I wouldn't close it too tight. Don't over torque it because it just gets hard to reopen. You know, it's drying right now, so I thread it on, thread it off. And you know, when that 15-minute timer goes, loosen the bottle a little bit too. So we'll talk about all that in just a second. All right, in the meantime, while this guy is drying, I want to talk to you a little bit. I'm going to just thread a regular rock claw on here to stand in for it while that VC3 material is drying. And that VC3 stuff is linked in this video's description. I'm going to open up just 1.5 of the 3 leg joints You know, once you've used one of these tripods for a while, you kind of know where eye level is going to be. And, you know, one thing I noticed people doing with these custom built tripods of mine, the pan and tilt head, I can't be without a pan and tilt head for most of the applications that I work with. You know, you look in the middle of the head and you level it. So for people with the tall, lightweight fluid head, sometimes they wonder a little bit about why the bubble level on the outside might be slightly off from the bubble level in the center of the head. There's a little bubble level right in the middle of the head, both on the panoramic head on my Ultralite build and on the fluid head. And that's just because there are little set screws that drive from these Leofoto's innovative little leveling adapters here up into the head. You just thread the head on hand tight and thread these 3 little set screws that go up at angles into the base of it, and they might bump it just a tiny bit so that it's not perfectly in level with the leveling adapter's level down below. The one that matters is the actual head's level. That's where you, because it might be that one set screw sticking up just a little bit more than another to just throw it slight bit off. And you can rotate this clamp on your head to be, you know, at 90 degrees or this orientation. It's as simple as loosening this. This is the Kirk bridge assembly, and rotating it with this Allen. And the clamp, like all of Kirk's clamps, has a built-in 5mm Allen slot. But a lot of people ask me, well, when do you use your nodal rail? People think of it just in terms of panoramas. And the truth is, I use it most of the time that I'm working with the tripod. And the reason is, you know, this is an adjustable nodal rail that I worked with Kirk to create so that if you're working with a really short lens on mirrorless, you can get it out of the frame. If you're working with a longer lens, you can get back and have more adjustability for panoramic capture. But what I like to do with it is, you know, here I've got my Z9 with my 24-120, and I'll drop it in vertical on the L bracket here. I drop it into this nodal rail because then I can loosen my tilt, and right now I'm back heavy. If I loosen the clamp on the fluid head and just slide a little bit, I can get a gimbal-like balance where when I let go, it's not going to flop in either direction, and the fluid's going to hold it. And I'm balanced for working with the camera. I can lock it, you know, and obviously what I love about a pan and tilt head with a leveling adapter is that if I want to just move a little up, I stay level. If I want to move just a little to the right, I stay level. I can lock off one axis and adjust the other. I can loosen both up. But then when I want to work with a longer lens, I will take the camera out and then pull my adjustable nodal rail off, and I drop my long lens. Here's my 100 to 400. See, I took the lens cap off. I'll drop it in, its foot in, instead of the nodal clamp, the LRP3, and I can swap these two lenses out. Let's see, spin it to where I got my white dot. There it is. And I can slide back, loosen this again, slide back to where I get nice and balanced on there. And then I have a gimbal. I loosen both angles of it, and I have a gimbal-like ability to track and move with action. The beauty of it all is that I never have to switch the orientation of the clamp on my head. It's just always set for either a long lens or for the nodal rail, the LRP3, to go ahead and grab my camera's L bracket. It's set no matter what, all right? So that's the thing I've noticed people being confused about. Now, obviously, if weight really matters and yet you've decided to take this along with you, that's gonna save you a good pound not taking that with you. Now, all of a sudden, this is a sub 7-pound tripod, even with the stone bag. Stone bag's a whole nother thing. You know, the stone bag is here for a good reason. If you're in windy conditions and you want to really lock down, or if you're doing a panorama, even, you know, or a time lapse or video, and you just want to be ultimately stable, you can hang your camera bag off the hook down here below on these stone bags. I had these stone bags redesigned with a hook down below because it's important to be able to hang something off it. You can also grab stones that are around you and drop them in here, or like I like to hang my camera bag from it in a lot of situations and then use it like a shelf. I can stack things that I'm using in there. You just have to be aware when you pick up your camera and you're moving that you don't dump that stuff out of there. And I use a stone bag with my little Featherweight tripod system. You know, in particular, I toss a stone bag in when I'm carrying this because it's so light that adding a stone bag takes a little, 2.5 pound tripod setup and turns it into a 30-pound tripod. You know, it flexes a little as you load it up, but then it doesn't move. So there you go. That's some tips for usage. One thing I noticed, we just had our Oregon Coast workshop, and on the Oregon Coast workshop, we worked in saltwater quite a bit. And I noticed, one thing that I really think is important, there's a lot of people who talk about they use kind of inferior tripods. I don't like selling or using or recommending any tripod where I'm not comfortable telling you to use the lowest leg section. I mean, I think if you're buying a tripod that's so flimsy that its lowest leg section is unusable, well, then it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. Even my little Featherweight tripod, you can go ahead and use all the leg sections. And when you're going to be working in saltwater conditions, absolutely extend that lowest leg section before you go out into the saltwater. Try, if you can, to keep this joint from ever going underwater. If it has to go underwater, well, then I've got another piece of advice. But extend your tripod. When I work with a tripod, I always extend it from the bottom up. So I'll extend the lowest leg section. Then if I need to adjust, it's always right there. I don't have to be leaning way down to work with a lower leg joint. I can set my leg down to the ground and then work over here. So I always put the lowest leg section out first. When I'm working in saltwater, I pay close attention. If the joint goes underwater, I'm not going to reopen it, not until I've rinsed it with fresh water. If I'm out and I get above knee deep in salt water, I know that this leg joint has gone underwater. I'm going to leave it locked nice and tight. When I build these, I put grease on the threads. They're nice and watertight. There's a lot of grease in those threads. So, if this joint's still dry and this leg is dry, I won't collapse it if there's salt water on this leg. If it's been splashed with salt water, I will pick up this tripod and carry it over my shoulders back to the van. Or out of the salt water to a place where I can carefully pour water from my water bottle or from my hydration bladder system, or rinse it in a freshwater stream and then let it air dry. You can take a cleaning cloth or a towel, microfiber towel that you have with you. You rinse it with fresh water and let it dry before opening that and collapsing it and letting salt water get in there to have salt build up inside your tripod leg. That's what you want to avoid, okay? If your legs wind up, if the leg locks start to feel a little crunchy with, that's gotten sand in there, or there's grit or salt is built up in there, well then the biggest key to do is, whoops, I knocked a leg off the table, or one of those feet, the rubber foot, is bring your tripod in and open that leg lock all the way. When you do that, you can pull the whole leg out. There's a little groove in the top bushing cap on this that lines up with the groove in the next leg. You got to kind of rotate it to put it back in. That's what keeps it from twisting when you're locking and opening your tripod. Old tripods didn't have that, and the legs would just spin when it was loose. It's a really nice feature that you have that little lock from the twisting. You're going to open it up. You're going to have a look at those threads. If they're dirty, go ahead and take some cloth, clean that out, flush it with fresh water, get it nice and dry. Take, again, another rag, and make sure I don't get that red stuff on my table, the VC3. Clean it all off. And then I like to use this product. It's linked on my website in the tripod section of the ATS links page, called Super Lube. And I link a smaller tube of this, but I buy it in a big can because we do so many custom tripods, and I do this for every leg joint of every one that goes out the door. You paint that grease into your threads, just into the threads, no other part. This part, that's going to keep water from intruding into the internals of your tripod, so long as you don't open it wet like we talked about. That's just a major key. And don't collapse it wet. That's going to bring water inside there too. Once that grease is applied to the threads and the threads are clean, grease is applied, you can thread it back down, slip your leg in there, and if there's any excess grease, just wipe it off. You don't want grease getting all over everything. Good to go. That's really the tripod maintenance that I do. Keeping those threads greased, making sure water doesn't get inside. And by just not unlocking it wet and collapsing it wet, particularly with salt water, that's your whole key. All right, so I don't know where we're at with our timer. Let's see. You know what? I'll let it run out and I'll pop back and then we'll reinstall that foot. Give it just a minute. But in the meantime, before I bid you adieu, I'll just make sure that, yep, I can still open that cap. Just keep checking that, because if that dries and kind of glues to itself with any wet VC3 product, it's going to be a little difficult. All right, we'll be back when this is dry and the timer goes off. All right, so the timer went off. I got a few things cleaned up in the meantime. And I pulled that claw off there, the standard claw, and I'm putting the Ultralite titanium one back on. Again, you know, I pull the leg, that lower leg section, which I've been harping on here, out. It's a little bit resistant to turning that guy in. Stick an Allen wrench through the hole in it. Grab a hold tight with my fist on the leg, not to torque the joint in there. Twist it on, you can feel it kind of tightening up that rubber gasket that the tie feet have between the foot and the tripod leg. Boom, it's on there. So that is unlikely to unthread, and it should last several good unthreadings. You can always add a little bit more later. I don't think I'm going to be without this VC3 stuff anytime soon. The last thing I want to do is lose any of these precious Ultralite tie feet. You know, getting down to the skinny of it, I think, you know, one other thing I get asked a ton about is, you know, which tripod for me, or why would I really need the tall, you know, heavier tripod? Even though for me, this tripod at 6 3/4 pounds with the titanium feet is an ultralight dream in its mechanism. I know that the fluid head looks a little bulky and unusual for those who've been using smaller, lightweight ball heads for a long time, but this fluid head is exactly the same weight as a Really Right Stuff BH55. It's 2 pounds, maybe a little less than 2 pounds with Kirk's bridge assembly on the top. This Leophoto leveling adapter is so brilliant because it has nothing below the tripod legs to getting your way, going all the way to the ground when you scooch those legs out. But it allows you 15 degrees of leveling in any direction with a kind of a progressive grab of this collar, and you can keep both hands on there leveling while you twist it with your pinky and then lock it down. Plus having those 3 little set screws that drive up from the side into the base of your head to secure it is just a huge benefit for locking your head down. The biggest thing to me is that, you know, we talked a minute ago about the benefits and practicalities of being able to put one leg out further. You know, whether it is that you're on a steep hillside or whether it is that you're on the edge of something that you can only get 2 feet on with you and you need one to go further down to get that tripod position that you want. It gives you flexibility. Having that 6+ pounds, having that 5+ pounds weight actually adds stability to the tripod as a whole. Working with it, you know, it's rooted in a way without even putting anything in the stone bag. You put something in the stone bag, it's even more rooted, it's even more rigid, it's even more solid. You're doing really high level work with, you know, 46, 60 megapixel sensors. Maybe you're working with medium format, you know, with the 100 megapixel sensors. You're doing panoramas, you're doing time lapse where you don't want anything to move at all. This is rock solid stability. You know, you tighten that adjustment, nothing moves after. There's no droop, there's no give. And the fluid head gives you that fine-tuned adjustability in those 2 axes level, and whatever you adjust, you stay level. It's so simple. Oh, I wish I was a little to the right. You don't have to loosen like you do with a ball and everything goes fluidy. The same thing is true with the Ultralite pan and tilt head. And the Ultralite head, you know, it's not as rock solid a tripod, being Series 2, a 284 set of legs, but it's tall, it's light, it weighs, you know, in the 4-pound range. It's got a built-in leveling adapter very similar to this LB75 systematic leveling adapter. You know, the way that this works, you can loosen the systematic and pull that whole leveling adapter with the head right out. That simple. It has a safety catch where it won't come out if it loosens unless you pull that release, but then you can torque that down and it's rock solid in there. This one has the leveling adapter built in with its 3 little set screws so that you can just easily lock the head down. The Acrotech panorama head is a work of art. 1 pound holds 25. Again, it has a beautiful built-in bubble level in the center. You get it level and you can pan and you can tilt. You can do panoramas. You can do precise compositional adjustments just like you can with the fluid head. But trust me, if you've had fluid in the head, you'll miss not having it. It just makes everything really, really fabulous. And if you ever think about doing video, the smooth movements you can do pushing against that fluid, there's no other way to do it than with the fluid head. That's why videographers universally are using fluid heads. The little Featherweight system, honestly, I kept having people show up to workshops with tiny little inadequate tripods, you know, from different brands, even some brands that do tremendous marketing and have hugely successful campaigns, and people are very proud of the tripod, but when you try to lock it down, it droops an inch after you try to. You have to sort of set it higher than you think because you let go and it droops. The head's difficult to work with. The bottom feet are too flimsy and flex and you feel no stability. This little guy, even with its tiny, you know, its lower legs out, it's very, very light. And it's very, very rock solid. I mean, I've worked with the Z9 and the 100 to 400 on this. It is a rock solid, solid little tripod. And I went with the GXP ball head, even though you heard my complaints about ball heads, because this GXP SS ball head is even lighter than the panorama head. It's like 3/4 of a pound. It holds 50 pounds. It's an insanely beautifully made tripod head, and it has a gimbal mode where it locks over and it's balanced on both sides. You can use a long lens up to a 100 to 400 with it, sort of gimbal style like this. You just loosen and it'll work with the lens locked in on the side. It's not my favorite. You would want your stone bag with some weight in it. And you can also pull it off the head, pull the clamp, this beautiful lever clamp that they make, which is my favorite lever clamp on the planet. Acrotech makes the best lever clamp out there. You can invert it and put the clamp on the top and use it like a panorama head as long as your panorama is level. And the beautiful thing is this whole thing weighs almost nothing and collapses to almost nothing, and you can take it with you anywhere. So I wind up having this with me when I have my little Leica Q3 with me, just in case for some reason I need a tripod. You know, if I'm super serious and I need to be lightweight, ski mountaineering trip, a multi-day backpacking trip, or if I'm taking a second tripod to do time-lapse and stuff, it's going to be my 4-pound Ultralite. And if I at all possibly can, it's my tall fluid head. Whenever I don't have this thing, I miss it. It's not that heavy. Everybody who ever picks it up on a workshop is like, wow, that's not as heavy as I thought. And it's a dream to work with. So, you have any questions about tripod stuff? This VC3 foot locking compound, it's great for a lot of other things too. Oh, one other little tip. These awesome spikes from Leo Photo with the removable cap. I like putting VC3 on the threads of that too, so the little cap feet protectors don't get lost either, because those can rotate off. I've loaned these out to people in the past and they've come back with missing feet caps, and so putting some VC3 on there makes it so it doesn't accidentally rotate loose if things get vibration-y. All right, so right now while you're watching this, I am off on workshop in probably Moab. I'm probably transitioning from Yellowstone to Moab. I'll be back in the studio before too very long. I'll be watching for comments and questions in my email and on the YouTube channel while I'm gone. Thank you so much for all of that. The questions and comments that you guys send drive the content on this channel. So thanks for being a member of the community, for liking, sharing, subscribing, for using my links that I put out there to products or buying things from my store, whether it's filters or tripods or Evo backpacks. That stuff really helps support what I do. And makes me happy to know that you're using the best possible gear out there. So if you have questions, if you have comments, hit me up. I'm always attuned to it. And we'll be doing a set of office hours. It's going to be a Q&A, any photographic topic that you want. You can sign up for Zoom or YouTube Live. It'll be on, I believe it's October 10th. It's a Tuesday. If it's not the 10th, you know, forgive me, but I think it's the 10th. It's the closest one to the 10th. When we get back from these workshops, we'll tell some tales of the roads, show some images from Yellowstone and Moab. and we'll take your questions. So I hope that we'll see you there. You can sign up for that by clicking this link or going down in this video's full description with the other links. And it's going to be hudsonhenry.com/office hours. You can leave a question, sign up for which platform you want to join the free Big Live photo get together on. We'll see you there. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all staying creative. And we'll see you next week.